Back.
You ready?
We're back. Yeah.
Hey team, welcome back to the Building Better Humans Project podcast. This is Mayhem Mondays. We're back.
We're back.
How'd you like the first episode?
I really loved it. I really hope you guys loved it as well.
Yeah, so some controversial questions in that one. And I thought about that afterwards and I thought, I'm not going to shy away from those.
No.
And part of me thought, you know, we don't want to be too aggressive in our answers, but if you're going to ask hard questions and you're going to opinionate them and put your side of it, of course, which you're absolutely welcome to do, then we owe it to you to do the same.
100%. And, yesterday the most controversial question was pretty controversial, but also they said, what are your thoughts?
Yes.
So
we gave you our thoughts.
we did.
There's a few more in today, and there's nothing really of a personal nature per se. It's just now people are asking our opinions. And that is our opinions from the point of view of people that are very big in personal development.
Yeah.
So, and I want to highlight that we are very ordinary people. And I know that's a challenging thought for people to think, but I just think everyone's really ordinary. You just get to choose what you decide to do with yourself and where you put your energy. And we don't put a lot of energy or really any energy into negativity or what we're, where we're not enough or the things that people go through, which is normal. We've all grown up at that at some point. But we put our energy into what we can change, what we do want to focus on, big goals and dreams that we have.
How we show up, what noise we block out, what things we want to focus on.
Yeah.
So it's all a big choice at the end of the day.
Yeah, and so if we share anything with you, it's that you have the same choices that we have. And wherever you are in life, it's a direct reflection of every thought you have, every decision you make, every action that you take, and every action you don't take, which is also a decision. So the empowerment of yourself is totally in your hands, and that's something that I think not enough people have a hold of.
Yeah.
So questions for today, which we'll go through. This one, actually, I said we won't do controversial questions, but this one's controversial.
Is it?
Yeah, I think so, because this one was about how do I connect with kids. So it was obviously aimed at me. And the reason I know it's aimed at me is because it mentions age. And it was, it's someone that must know me well enough because they finish it with saying, cheers, Razor. And not everyone calls me Razor, but, a certain group of people do. So I kind of feel like you must know me at a level, but then it's laden with some stuff. So I'll give you the stuff. It says, how do you connect with kids? Not a critique, which typically is when people say,
no offense, but, and then proceed to fully offend you. Anyway.
Yeah, so how do you connect with kids? Not a critique, just curious how you find common ground. You don't strike me as someone who was cool at a young age. I might have been. We don't know.
You don't know. No one knows. We'll never know.
So you don't strike me as someone who's cool at a young age, let alone being 50 plus now. So how do you connect? Or do they find the whole granddad trying to relate thing weird?
Oh, my God. Shots. Shots
fired?
So many shots.
So, look, I'm actually not offended by that question.
You're not cool, granddad.
And you weren't when you were young.
And let me remind you of your age while we're here.
So I'll just say this, because there's a serious tone to that question, is that I've spent a lot of years working around that sort of 11 to 17-year-olds, particularly around that 14, 15-year-olds. I find that I connect really well because I don't go out of my way to try and dominate them. So I've got a certain personality, and I use my story as an ex-soldier and as a fighter and as a coach of fighters now. I use that story to connect with them in the sense that I'm not soft. I'm not coming with a soft point of view, but I can talk about soft things. So I can talk about their emotions and what they're feeling, and I actually connect really well. And all it is, and this is a message for everyone, it's about respect.
Yes.
We get some pretty tough kids come through our programs and everyone in between, but we respect them. And the first thing I tell them on our programs is that respect is the most important thing here. I'll absolutely demand that you respect me and the team, the adults here, that you respect each other, but most importantly, that you respect yourself and how you show up. So that's the easiest way I would handle it. I'm not trying to be their friend. We live in a society where parents, adults, coaches, even teachers maybe, we want to be kids' friends. But that's not our role. Our role is to lead them.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you can't have fun with them and connect with them, but I'm not there trying to be their mates.
No.
I'm just there. I'm not trying to show them that I'm cool at any age. I'm just
Kids would see straight through that anyway, regardless of what your age is. If you're an adult and you're trying to be hip, people say that anymore, with the with the kids, they'll just be like cringe.
Yeah.
So just be yourself, and like what you said, you
Yeah.
don't have to try and be their mate or try and be cool, because they'll just call you cringe.
And where I connect actually with kids that are from a tougher side of the tracks, and I've dealt with a lot of them, is, they look at where I'm at now and think I'm successful.
Yeah.
And you term success however you want, but to them, you've got a job and you've got respect and you've got autonomy, which is all the things kids want. You have money as far as they're concerned, nice cars, all the things. And so they think you're successful. And then when I tell them that I moved out of home at 14, I was displaced, and they go, okay, so I can get to where you are despite where I've started. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so that's a connection point too, typically, when you've been through some tough stuff. Because the worst thing for young people, in my experience of dealing with them, is when you have someone well-educated, like psychologists, and this is no disrespect to anyone, but well-educated, who talks down to young people and they don't really respect them. And the best advice I ever got from a couple of ladies that used to run a program in Toowoomba called Emerge, they said to me, the biggest thing is to meet children where they're at, not where you expect them to be, not where you wish they were. You just come down and meet them where they're at.
That's a good one. I love that.
Yeah. So that's my connection point.
Nice.
So all the little barbs thrown in that question. the question is actually legit. I think about that. How do I connect? Because
it's a good question.
Yeah, if you can't connect with someone, you can't help them.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. And so that you got problems with work colleagues, with staff, with your own children. You've got to be able to connect with them. So
I think you're cool, babe.
Thank you, baby. I'm going to take that. This one, who would win a boxing match? I assume they mean out of you and I.
You and I. We might have to put that one on.
So
you got reach on me. You obviously got power on me. You got
a
a world more experience than me.
a little bit of size.
Yeah, I think I move my feet pretty quick, though.
So Millie fights at 54 kilos and I walk around at 115. I don't even know why someone would ask that. I like this question. So it says, have you shared a big goal? If yes, please let it be that you're going on the Amazing Race.
I have always wanted to go on the Amazing Race. Always wanted to go on the Amazing Race. So I would love to go on the Amazing Race with you. And I think we would nail it.
I haven't watched that show in years, but
Neither
I love
have I.
adventure. I love travel. I think that we don't argue a lot about stuff. Like, we're very goal focused when we're doing stuff. And so if we're in some sort of show like that, what makes it entertaining is when people start losing their shit at each other. And I don't think we would do that.
No, because we work well together under pressure, and we feed off each other when we're in situations, that should create pressure. So we'd have to put on arguments for drama's sake.
Well, we're very competitive.
Yeah, true.
I would suggest.
I'd be like, hurry up!
I would suggest that Millie's more competitive these days.
Fair.
So therefore, if we were to lose, and by lose I mean even coming second,
You're not first, you're last.
And it was potentially my fault, as you know, it might be a touch slower.
We don't do fault and blame.
But say I was a touch slower than you, for example, hypothetically speaking, and you were going, if you would just move quicker, I reckon that's where our arguments would start.
Maybe.
But everything else, if it come to direction, if it said north, south, east or west.
Don't hit me with north, south, east or west, all right? Don't hit me with that.
One of Millie's pet hates is when the sat nav says to you, take a west on such and such a street. What are you talking about?
Which way? Left, right, straight, or back?
Give me something. All right, let's find another question to keep it going. This is a relationship one. Oh no, actually it's a similar one. So we had a question last week about how do we keep the spark in a relationship? We've had a baby and all of that sort of thing. There was another question very similar. So I'm not even sure if the same person wrote it, but it was just about how do we keep a spark in a relationship that we've had for a long period of time? And we did talk about that, so I won't go in depth, but our big thing was communication, obviously, try and maintain the standards. And when you have children, and we have a busy lives.
It's crazy.
Crazy busy lives. And we're operating, sometimes it feels like 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
And so when you're in those situations, I can understand how people can disconnect from each other because you don't think about those small things. Those, I'll talk about, I made a commitment to Millie this year that I would send her a text every single day. I like writing, so I like the written word, and it could be poetry based, or it could be a thought, or it could be, and we're at day, as we record this, 149, and we haven't missed a day.
We haven't missed a day. It's very impressive. In fact, even when we were on Kokoda, we don't get any service. He'd come up to me in the morning just as we were leaving, and he'd be like, "Turn your AirDrop on," and then he'd AirDrop me the note, and I'd read it, and sometimes I'd almost cry, but it was beautiful.
But this is also about making a commitment, because from my point of view, there are days where I don't want to send that message. And there are days where absolutely you don't want to receive that message.
I don't open it.
Yeah.
Until I feel better.
But one of the things I do pride myself on is consistency.
Yes.
So typically, if I'm going to say, this is what I'm going to do, then I'll do my best to do it. And so
it's actually one of the many things I love about you is how consistent you are.
Yeah, like it's my strength.
Yeah.
Like we've all got multiple strengths, but one of my main strength, if I had to pick one, is consistency.
With posting, with your business, with your values, with your love for me, with what you said that you were going to do. You're very consistent, and I love it.
Even to the point where when things just go awry, which they do in business and in life, I can still show up. I've had some pretty hectic things happen right before I walk in and do a keynote speech, and they wouldn't know. But internally, I'm feeling it.
Yeah.
But I do have the capacity to say, well, I need to do this thing. This is more important, and I do that thing.
Love.
So consistency is a good thing. So if you're looking for a way to work on your relationship, my advice would be to do some work around the love languages. There's a book, for those that don't know, I'm sure people know, but called The 5 Love Languages. And it's a communication book. It's about understanding how the other person speaks. So my love language might be physical touch. So I want to hold hands. And your love language might be words of affirmation. You need to be told that you're loved. Someone else's love language might be acts of service. So, if mine's acts of service and I mow the lawn and I clean the pool, I think I'm showing love. But if my partner's is physical touch or words of affirmation, and I'm not doing that, and then she will say to me, "But you don't love me because you never told me you love me." And I'm thinking, "But I just went out and mowed the lawn."
Yeah.
That's kind of where you get a disconnect. And
that's just an example, by the way.
Yeah, that's not our example. We don't have a pool.
You tell me you love me a lot.
And we don't have a pool. We don't have a pool because I don't want a pool cleaner coming in. No.
Shirt off.
So, yeah, it's just about trying to understand how that other person responds to things, so you can speak in each other's language.
Yeah.
Because some people will say to me, well, if we have different love languages, we mustn't be compatible. That's just garbage. Of course, we all speak in a different language. And I've actually found communication in the workplace is about love languages as well, in the sense that how does someone like to be communicated to? Some people, I know with athletes, some people, I'm very calm when I'm with fighters. Some people like to be yelled at. Some people need a rocket put up them, and other people they'll shut down if you do that. So even in that's my workspace. You've got to work out how to communicate with someone. Some people can have very direct communication, and some people do not like that.
Yeah.
So you just got to work out how to get the most out of people. So I like that question.
Yeah.
What's one thing people often misunderstand about coaching or being coached, and how do you approach it differently? And I think we can both answer this because I coach you and athletes, but you coach people in the, Millie's been running online personal training businesses for a long period of time and so on. So
for me, it's that when you're a coach, you're absolutely perfect in everything that you do. So sometimes I'll be drinking a full sugar Coke and they're like, "Oh my God, you drink Coke?" And you're like, "Yeah, not always. I'll just have, a couple sips here and there," which is my personal preference, but sometimes I don't mind a full Coke. I also love donuts. I also love to eat whatever. So I've found it in the past many times. People go, "Oh my God, how are you eating that?" And I can't believe you eat that. So from a personal trainer perspective, that's one thing that personal trainers get misunderstood is that we're perfect in every single aspect of our lives when we just do balance very well.
Because we look at your physical body and we go, "Man, she must be extreme about everything that goes into her mouth." And I'm not going to lie, and I've told you this before, I thought that.
Yeah.
And I know before we living together and all that sort of stuff, I thought, I don't know if I'm up for that, because I like to eat what I want. I do eat in moderation. I don't eat a huge amount for my size, but you exercise way more than I do. Your metabolism is pumping. And so then when we started going out and you're eating pizza and you're having cocktails and okay, there's balance here.
I love eating out. It's
Yeah.
one of my favorite things in the entire world. I love to try new restaurants. I love fine dining. I love a cocktail. I love a wine. I absolutely live for that stuff. So, but I also live to be healthy and fit. So, yeah, it's balance. And I know that's such a like, oh my God, another personal trainer talking to me about balance, but that's
Yeah.
actually true. You have to find a good
But
balance.
you also do exactly what you say you're going to do in that
Yeah.
sense. And also, exercise for you is an absolute non-negotiable. It's not something you have to force.
It's like waking up and breathing for me. And I know that sounds crazy and like wild, but yeah, I used to tell my clients like, they used to say, "How do I fit it in?" And I'm like, "Well, think of it like work. You have to go to work because you have to pay your bills. So you have to do that." So,
People always do what they want to do. So if you're sitting watching TV, you've got the same amount of hours. You're doing something with those hours. That's what you want to do. But I know, like, for your point of view, we came home from nationals last year, the national boxing titles in Papua New Guinea. And I said to Mel, we got home late on a Thursday night from memory, and I just, like 8 o'clock or something, and I just said, have tomorrow off or a couple of days off. And then at 4 o'clock the next morning, because she couldn't sleep, gets up and goes to the gym.
yeah.
You know?
That's not to say that I don't have days off. I definitely do love a day off, but I absolutely love to train. So, yeah.
It's become such a non-negotiable for you that you feel guilty, though, if you haven't trained or if there's something.
I feel guilty when I know that I was scheduled to train that particular session that day and something changes and I have to change it.
So,
So it's kind of like, let's go back to the work concept. So it's kind of like you had to work that day because you have to be making that money. You can't let your boss down or whoever or your clients down or whatever, but something changed, maybe you're sick, you feel bad. It's the same for me. So
to go back to that question, a misunderstanding about coaching for me is that one system works for everyone. So I'm talking purely in athletic coaching here. If you've got coaches that think they know everything already because they've had people succeed under that system, that's a problem for me. Now, if you look at a really high-performing system like a Melbourne Storm, if we're talking rugby league, the system is for the whole team. I know blokes that have been at the Storm, they have individualised systems for each of the positions and the people as well. So there's an overall system. I've worked in boxing for years, for over 30 years, and there are coaches who think this is just the way it needs to be done. What I've learned is that there's a massive difference between women athletes and men athletes, absolutely. There's a massive difference between age groups, maturity levels, and so I used to run everything very militant. Be here at 6 o'clock in the morning or whatever it was, and if you were there at 6:03, and then when I was working with full-time professional athletes, I thought, there's no reason for them necessarily to be here at 6 a.m. That was just my military brain saying 6 a.m. And so I started to be a little bit more flexible in my approach.
yeah.
And that's a learned process. I'm not saying I've necessarily nailed that, but what I'm also good at as a coach is I adapt what other coaches are doing if I think it works.
Yeah.
Or you and I will see something, we'll trial it. And we like it or we'll adjust it. How often do we look at a combination and go, let's try this combination?
Yeah.
And we don't do it once, we drill it over a few days.
You break it down and do it well.
Then
and-
we'll adjust it. So, I think flexibility in what they call behavioural flexibility. Be really flexible in the approach. The goal is the goal. The goal is in boxing to win a title, be it the Australasian title, the Australian title, the world title. That's the goal. But the approach to get to that goal could change, and it will change drastically from one athlete to the next.
Yeah, like I've had lots of coaches over my time, whether it be, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, netball, footy, soccer, whatever it was. And yeah, there's a lot of coaches who this is the way that it is and this is the way that you're going to do it. So it's nice when you come across a coach who has behavioral flexibility.
Boxing's my favourite one. There'll always be the people that say, Floyd Mayweather does this.
Yeah.
Well, he's got a very different style than a Gennady Golovkin, than a Canelo Alvarez, than a Mike Tyson.
Yeah, there's not just one style, hey.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you have a head coach of a gym that has one style, all their fighters fight like that, and you just know what they're going to be like. So
I know that if they come from this gym, they're going to have crazy fitness but basic skills.
yeah.
Or I know if they come from this gym, they love to throw a jab and they love to catch and shoot, but there's not much. There's a gym that loves to throw body shots. There's you just know. There are certain gyms when you spar, it's going to be a fight.
Yeah.
And so on. And that's just how they do everything. So this next question, which I like, says, you and your partner seem to have a strong bond, and I enjoy seeing the rawness and openness that you guys display. How do you navigate negative, jealous public opinion while staying true to your values and connection?
For this will always come down to I don't give them any of my time. So I don't think about it. It might go, this person said something, or we might get a question that has that negative underlining tone to it. And, initially it might slightly challenge me, but then it always comes back to, I really don't care what you think. So, yeah. And that sounds so like, I don't know how to explain how it sounds, but it's not as aggressive as it sounds. It's just simply the fact that I live my life how I am living my life.
People get offended at some level when you say what you say in the way that you say it. And that's why we had a question about the difference between confidence and arrogance and narcissism and all that stuff. But the truth is that we're all looking for ways to be happy and fulfilled in our own life. We cannot do that if we're marching to someone else's beat all the time. So, in other words, if you need your partner to do something different for you to feel something different, if you need your boss to do something different or your best friend to do something different, then all of the power rests with them. When they do that, then I'm going to feel this. But the problem with that is that as soon as they change that behavior, then so does your feeling and emotion. And so I love this saying that says that if you give people the power to feed you, you also give them the power to starve you. And what it means is if I'm validated, for example, by social media, getting my 300 likes or whatever the thing is, as soon as someone takes that attention away from me, I now crave it.
Yeah.
That's how people end up in really bad relationships, as in domestic violence and those sort of things, is that coercive control, that sort of stuff. It's because they shower you with love, and then as soon as they start to pull that away from you, you start chasing it. Like, how do I get that back? What have I done wrong? And you start adjusting your behaviour, and that long term, if you do a bit of research, and that becomes coercive control. And so, if you have the capacity to be confident in yourself, I'm happy, I'm healthy, I like the decisions I make. I heard someone term this recently that I would buy me a beer. If you are someone that would love to sit down and have a coffee with yourself, then that's a pretty cool outcome to have for your life.
Yep.
It's a different way of looking at it.
Yeah, I do love that. I'd buy me a beer.
Yes. You'd buy yourself a cocktail or 3. This one here, there's 2 parts to this question. It starts with how do you develop resilience? And for me, resilience is developed by challenging yourself. You've got to put yourself in situations that make you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because the way I look at it is there's this circle of everything that we are capable of, that we have the capacity to do, that we know about ourselves. Everything outside of that circle are the unknowns. Some of them are close to us, so we know we don't know them, and outside of that, things we don't even know we don't know. When something uncomfortable hits that circle, we can either shrink a little bit, but our whole circle shrinks. And every time we get hit, the world will always hit us. Or we can take on that challenge and we get bigger. And then when we get bigger, we have more capacity to do the next thing. When we hit certain ages, and typically for people, it's, believe it or not, as young as our sort of early to mid-20s, we stop doing anything that we're not good at, that makes us uncomfortable. I've had this in children. I've had young people coming on programs and we don't give them an outline of the program. We don't give parents the outline. We just tell them where to be, when to be, and when to pick them up. And the very first bro camp I ever run, I had 2 different mums contact me who didn't know each other, and they both said the same thing. Can you let us know what's happening on the program? And I said, no. And they just kept harassing me. So in the end, against my better judgment, I said, I'll give you an outline, but I don't want the boys to know, because I want them to understand that they can take on challenges without having all the information. So long story short, both of those boys, I got contacted from their parents saying that he's really anxious. He has really bad anxiety. One of them, they said he wet the bed last night. On the drive here, he said, because she messaged me as I was driving to the program, he said, I wished I'd killed myself rather than go on this program. It was really intense.
Aww.
And I said, what was all that about? And she said, well, I told him that you were going to do a night climb of a mountain. I said, why would you tell him that? Oh, I thought it would help his anxiety. No, it made it worse.
Yeah.
Whereas if he hadn't have known that, and then we just got to that 10 o'clock at night and we said, right, now we're climbing this mountain, we're doing, okay, that's what we're doing. And so sometimes we give them too much information. What I want to teach them, because the second part of that question was, second part is in today's youth. How do we teach resilience in today's youth? Well, the same way. We give them the capacity to take on challenges. We don't helicopter parent. We don't snowplow in front of them. We don't clear the path to make sure everything's okay. We let them get uncomfortable. We let them, like with our boys, we let them sort out a lot of their own fights.
Yeah, problem solving for their own selves,
Yeah.
I can't remember the quote, but it was the more you do for your child, it gives you self-esteem and it takes away theirs by
Yeah.
stealing theirs, and that's
Yeah.
true. You got to let them solve their own things
Yeah. And they're going
sometimes.
to get uncomfortable and they're going to get their hearts broken by early relationships, by friendships, by, we've been in situations where our boy's done something or someone's done something to them and the next day they're all friends again.
Yeah.
But if you want to come in and start ringing parents and saying, why did little Johnny upset our little Sammy? And, well, that's crazy.
You're not always going to be there, so you have to teach them from a young age how to sort things out on their own. And if it gets a bit hectic for their young mind or whatever, then maybe you can step in a little bit, but not too much. Also, I think when they're in hard or tough situations, I was raised by a mother who always would, and at the time, I will admit it felt very like invalidating, but she would also go, there's always someone who's doing it worse. It could be worse. There's always something worse that could happen. And yeah, I like the way I was raised, to be honest. At the time, I really didn't, but now I see what she was saying, and it could be worse. And there are worse situations, and it's not that bad. You can get over it. You can get through it. So
There's a thing called the power of negative thinking. So we all hear about the power of positive thinking, but some people take that too far and it's toxic positivity. It's like everything's going wrong and no, the world's amazing. Well, it's not. It's pretty tough at the moment, but I'm going to get through this.
yeah.
And the power of negative thinking is it could be worse. And the army used it a lot when we're in the military. And we had a famous saying that no matter what you were going through, when you're out bush or overseas, people would always say, it could be worse, it could be raining. That was always like the epitome of the worst. And then sometimes it would be raining. But
Could be snowing.
Yeah, you just learnt that there are definitely worse situations. Obviously I've travelled the world. I've been in war zones and I've been in third world countries. I've seen some pretty hectic things, and that gives me some grounding. And I think even having Christian, so for those that don't know, my son Christian's 21. He's autistic and intellectually impaired, so he's like living with a big kid all the time. He can't do certain things himself, like he doesn't really shower himself properly or wipe his own bum, or he won't drive a car, definitely. He doesn't play a sport. He probably won't ever have a job, really. But that gives me the capacity to say, well, with everything going on in life, he didn't ask for that. He was just born that way.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, I've got the physical and mental capacity to change anything I want in my life. If you don't like it, you can change it. I'm not saying it's easy, but you can change it. And so by having that,
or you can change the way you think and feel about it.
Yeah.
You can change your outlook on it.
Yeah, which is an old Stoic philosophy that ultimately you control how you feel about a thing.
Yeah.
Which ties into Millie's belief around feelings.
Millie's fact.
We're going to talk about that another time. This question here, actually, there was one that just said, you're attractive. So I assume that could be talking to either one of us.
Yeah, you never
All
know.
right, it's probably you.
You never know.
Fair.
Could be you.
This one says, how can I overcome the fear of fighting? I have severe anxiety before my fights. I know I'm capable. I have the skills, endurance, but my head gets in the way. I've been lucky to win a few fights, but the others I could have easily won if I didn't have so much anxiety before I walked out.
That's a hard one to answer because what are you anxious about? You've got to sit down and think about it. What is it that you're anxious about?
You don't really get nervous with fights. I mean, your normal nerves, but not, I wouldn't say it's a point of anxiety because I've seen
No.
fighters that are just like
Wide-eyed
Yeah.
and just sitting there and sort of, yeah. And no, I don't.
So for me, I would answer that question by finding out where in the process that anxiety kicks in.
Yeah.
So is it a week before? Is it the day before? Is it the ring walkout? Is it the... And then what I would do is I would visualize, for one, that whole process, and then I would reenact it. So, and by that I mean, often when we spar in a gym, so when we're using boxing as, or this could be anything, MMA, kickboxing, but when we're sparring, there's often not many people around. And so one thing I learned when I was in America, we went to Mayweather's gym and we trained, they had 2 boxing rings and you would spar there, and there were some high-level athletes, or what I thought were high-level athletes, that they would make out like they were average. But it was, the sparring was like a fight sometimes. But they would have 40, 50 people in the gym easily or more, and they would surround the ring and they'd be yelling at you and they'd be cheering for their fighter if they had a fighter, or they'd pick a side. And I also think, man, this is pretty intense. This is just sparring. But I realise now, and we talked to them a bit about this, that they're trying to simulate what a fight's like, because not everyone's going for you in the fight. People are going to yell out some pretty crappy things, and people are going to make fun, or they're going to, and they do that at Mayweather's gym. If you make a mistake or if you get dropped, they'll be cheering, and they have a referee in the ring. So they're simulating. I haven't seen many Australian gyms in all my years who put a referee inside a boxing ring. Every gym we went to in America, we went to Top Rank, we went to Mayweather's, we went to DLX, we went to Bones Adams. These are all very well-known gyms. Every single one of them had a referee or someone acting as a referee. They would put 8 counts on you.
In PNG they do.
In PNG they do.
gets pretty wild, the sparring.
Because they try and kill each other.
Yeah.
But these guys would tell you if you're hitting low. They would do everything like a referee would do.
Yeah.
And so that's a long way of saying that visualize and then reenact the whole process and find out where is that chink in your armor, because it's mental. You're saying that you're capable, so you know you're capable.
You've won the few fights. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Good, well done.
So you can replicate that.
Yeah, so you can sit down and close your eyes and think about what it is that makes you anxious. You could even write it down and then, yeah.
So I actually do have, and I'm not selling this, but I have online programs specifically for athletes, any athletes, because I don't think enough athletes focus on mindset, or I don't think enough coaches focus on mindset. Coaches will just coach. My old boxing coach years ago just taught boxing. You had to get yourself fit. He wasn't remotely interested in the fitness side of it, which is fine. But
that's cool.
You know, in our level of boxing these days, that's 30 years ago, we have strength and conditioning programs. We have, your boxing technical sessions. But what we don't see a lot of is mindset stuff. And so
across lots of sport.
Yeah, well, I've worked, as you know, in NRL, NRLW. I've had coaches at high levels come to me and say, I've never heard any of this stuff. And I think, how have you not heard this? Because I've got a good mate that was in the SAS that studied around the psychology of building warfighters, and he asked the SAS to allow him to go and study that through the best sports psychologists in the world, which they let him, and he went to the NFL. And he said the systems in the NFL are so crazy with what they build around mindset. And then you come back to NRL, and it's kind of like, Cowboy Sunday. It's just like, so when I know NRL players that have had serious issues, and they'll get them a sports psychologist when the wheels have fallen off. Our idea around mindset, and I'd invite whoever wrote this, would be start working on it now. Make it a part of your preparation. You think we'll dedicate 3 to 5 hours a day to training, depending on where we're at training camp, as a professional athlete. Put 30 minutes of mindset into your program, whether it be listening to a podcast, reading a book, watching videos on YouTube. Find things and build things that are going to help you change the way you think about things.
And do the things that they suggest, because sometimes people will just listen to something and think that that's all they need, but you need to actually put it into practice.
All right. I have one question here, which I don't have the answer to per se, but we open the floor to any questions, and it was thoughts on radiation therapy, how to keep positive energy frequencies up. And I think I know who this comes from, because I won't name names, but I had a young kid that's done numerous programs with me, and he's on the autism spectrum, and he's a beautiful young kid, and his mum has been going through cancer treatments and radiation therapy. So I'm assuming that's who this come from, but I don't know. But I worked in childhood cancer support for a little while, and I think I'm pretty tough, mentally and emotionally. I think I'm pretty tough. And back then I was in my mid-30s. It was the hardest thing I ever did. Dealing with young people having cancer, it was hectic. Like 3-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 15-year-olds, some of them passing away. I had a 15-year-old that had cancer since she was 5 or 6 and had gone into remission, and then it come back, gone into remission, come back. It's very hard to deal with. But one thing I noticed, and I don't know how to keep your frequencies up. I guess it's the same as anywhere, like putting positive things inside your head. But one thing I noticed is that people in cancer wards who are more positive, I don't think they live longer necessarily, because it's not that, but they seem happier. So the quality of the life that they have seems better. That's all I could say. And that sounds a bit naff, but that's just how I feel. Like if you allow yourself to be negative and to be beaten up and to, this thing you're going through sucks.
Yeah.
Like, let's be really honest. It sucks. And it's something that the world hasn't figured out yet. We've figured out a lot of things, but not cancer. And so I don't want to go through it. I've had grandparents on both sides that have passed from cancer. It's pretty scary when you watch what people go through. But I just think, like the rest of life, and this is for anyone, it's not just if you're going through this, the more positive you are, doesn't mean your life is better, but you're just viewing it in the best way you possibly can.
Yeah.
So that's, I don't know. I don't really know how to answer that.
Neither do I. I have absolutely no experience in that. So I haven't had a family member, luckily, touch wood. So I'm sorry that you're going through that.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. And there are very few things in life that you have no control over, but that's one of them. When something happens to your health, it's not because you didn't look after yourself. It's not because it could be anything. Like cancer can hit the healthiest people. I even know like really fit and healthy people who exercise a lot that have had strokes and had heart attacks. These things happen, right? You lower the chances by looking after yourself, but these things still happen. And you can mentally kick yourself in the butt a bit when you get a bit down. I know it's not the same as a health thing, but I know when COVID hit, I had a business that was running adventure professionals, that just shut down overnight. Now, I'd spent 17 years in the military full time, and so mentally, for about 2 or 3 months in particular, I was kicking stones, I was hating life, I was thinking I've served my country, and I haven't done anything wrong. It wasn't that we didn't market our business properly, it wasn't that we weren't good at our business, they just shut the borders down and we couldn't travel. And so I was really down on the world, and I had to change my attitude, because otherwise, well, as we know, that went on for 2 or 3 years for the international adventure industry. So it's kind of the same idea. I didn't cause it, I had no ownership of it, but what I could change was the way I thought about it.
Yeah.
And it allowed me to do a lot of other things other than make money, which I love to make money, obviously, to pay bills, but it allowed me to make, I look at now this stone, I think about dominoes. One drops, the next one drops, the next one drops. So there's a lot of good and bad things happen for me through the COVID years. But if I put it all together as a group, I wouldn't have met yourself.
Yeah.
At the biggest level of what's the most important thing in my life right now, which is you,
Thanks,
and
baby.
our family and what we're creating, absolutely, that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
Now, I've lost some people along the way. I've picked up some people along the way. I've had some good experiences. Had some really poor experiences. But I feel like if I hadn't changed that mindset in that first 3 months, I still probably wouldn't have got to here.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't really answer the radiation question or the having cancer question but hey, if you can just change and put as much good stuff inside your head as you possibly can, because there's already enough bad stuff happening.
Yeah.
And I haven't got one on, but buy a Not Dead Yet shirt. So the Not Dead Yet shirts, I used to, I've had a couple of mates that have been in cancer wards. One, Simon, who's gotten past his cancer at the moment. He's around my age, maybe a year or two older, and he came in and bought some Not Dead Yet shirts. He'd done Aussie 10 with me with childhood cancer support, ironically, 10 years earlier. And I hadn't heard from him in ages, and he messaged me and said, I want to buy some Not Dead Yet shirts. I'm going through this cancer in my throat. And it was pretty hectic, and he said they were such a topic of conversation with all the doctors and even all of the other cancer patients. So sometimes just thumbing your nose at what society is throwing at you is a pretty powerful thing as well. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see what else we've got on here. I don't know. I feel like we might have answered most of these ones. Oh, this is an interesting one around relationships. How do I stop getting jealous? I saw some photos of my partner's ex. Just can't get out of my head. She has a lot of mates who are guys. I'm trying really hard to not be insecure. That's deep.
Yeah. Just what are you scared of, I guess? What are you scared of is going to happen if she has male? Because I've got a lot of guy mates, and so I'll answer that by saying I've had a lot of guy mates for a very long time, and I feel like if something was going to happen between those guy mates and I, maybe it would have happened by now. They're mates for a reason,
Yeah.
We didn't get romantically involved for many reasons. I love you boys, but yeah, you're just not my type in that way. You're good as friends, and that's where we'll keep it. And then with the picture of the ex, I don't know.
So for
I'm not
me,
sure.
There's a thing in personal development called shadow work, which is, and I'm not fully versed on it, but shadow work is kind of working on those darker parts of ourself. And in this case, when I'm thinking about that question, I don't think it's anything to do with your partner or her guy mates, unless there's been situations where she's given you cause not to trust her, like if she's cheated or something's happened, of course. But mostly the shadow work would be, what is it triggering within you? So
What are you scared of?
is there an insecurity? So you might look at this guy and go, he looks fitter than I am, he looks tougher than I am, he looks whatever. So that's nothing to do with her. That's got everything to do with you, and you can change that. You could have been cheated on numerous times in the past. Okay, there's a trigger. And I think the best way to handle that is to have open conversations with her about that. We've had open conversations. So, Millie's got a friend that she's very close with, and I'm happy to say this publicly because that's what this podcast is, where whenever she would answer the phone to him, she'd always call him my love. And I said, well, I don't really like that, if I'm honest. And doesn't mean that she had to stop doing that, but she just hadn't understood how I felt. And then we discussed why, and you said, well, I say it to Tegan and all these other people. Yeah, but it's not the same because I'm not threatened by them, right?
Yeah.
And it hasn't been a massive issue for us, but I like the fact that we spoke about it. And you haven't stopped doing it because you haven't had to, because you've discussed it. And I go, okay, well, I trust you.
Yeah.
Because one thing I do know is I have zero belief that you would cheat on me.
Thank you.
Zero. So it's not that. So then the trigger has got to be something within me.
Yeah.
Because it can't be my fear that you're going to cheat. And there's lots of reasons I don't believe you'd cheat. I just don't believe you would. Two, I think you know what, if you did, that's a non-negotiable for both of us. We've always said that.
Yeah.
You've done nothing in general to stop me trusting you. You're brutally honest. If anyone's watched Jerry Maguire, she added the word brutal. But also, my triggers from my past, whatever they might be, people leaving you and all that sort of stuff, I have to deal with that. So this person, whoever you are, you have to deal with your things from the past, because at the moment you're unfairly putting that onto your partner.
Yeah.
And so you're either not communicating it, which you need to talk about it, and you need to do it in a way where she doesn't feel attacked and she's not getting defensive, and then when whatever she says, you're not getting defensive, obviously. There's another saying that I love, which is, don't bleed on people who didn't cut you. So effectively right now, assuming that she has never cheated on you, you're bleeding on her, but she didn't cut you.
Yeah.
So
also assuming that she doesn't put things in your face specifically to make you jealous, because that sucks. It's like, yeah, that's exhausting when somebody does that. So if that's the case, then I would suggest leaving, because that
100%.
is, I'm a leaver, like I said last week.
Well, if someone cheats, if someone's purposely trying to make you jealous, which
or
is,
piss you off, or whatever it is.
as we all say, that's very boring. That's
stop it.
Millie's favourite thing was, stop it, it's boring. And we've had situations where I've done something and she'll say, did you do that just to annoy me? And I said, well, no, I wouldn't do that. But now I know it did annoy her, I won't do it again.
Yeah.
Or I'll do my best not to.
Well, most of the time when I ask that, it's because that specific thing didn't necessarily annoy me. It's the fact that you might have been doing it to annoy me.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the thing
That's what I'm saying,
that annoys me. And so, yeah.
Were you trying to get a response from me?
Exactly, yeah.
Because if so, then
you're
you would
boring
say,
and bye.
And that's the beginning of the end.
Boy, bye.
So, yeah, but to answer that, that's a really serious question. And I understand. And this will be age dependent too, because you get more mature as a man as you get older, hopefully. And so we don't respond from emotion as much as we do when we're younger.
Yeah.
Men act like we're not emotional. We can be calm in a situation, but internally, we're equally as emotional as women when it comes to our own security in particular, and around people leaving us. And obviously, this is just, I guess, an opinion piece, but you're a very attractive woman.
Thank you.
You're physically fit. You're very intelligent. You walk with one of the things that first attracted me to Millie, she walked with a certain presence. And I feel like I walk with that same presence, and it's kind of funny when we do things together. But naturally then, my brain goes, well, why would other men be interested in you? Of course. And then if I worry about my age or my fitness or whatever my shortcoming is, and we all look in the mirror and see something we don't like about ourselves, then anyone that's got what I don't have, so if they're younger than me, because I can't change that, if they've got a six-pack, I could change that, but I don't want to, because I'm kind of comfortable where I am. I'm not overweight, but I'm comfortable. Like, whatever the thing is. And then men can get into this idea that, if he's richer than I am, and you're like, well, if I wanted to date someone with a Ferrari, I would just do that. I've done that. That's not the thing. So the shortcomings
to be honest, all they talk about is their Ferrari.
Yeah.
Boring.
But also the shortcomings that we feel are actually within us. So I might feel like I don't make enough money. I might feel like I'm not fit enough. You can change all those things. So, but it's probably easier to say, well, hang on, she chose to be with you. Why did she choose to be with you?
Yeah.
And it wasn't for your insecurities, so work on those. But yeah, but the bigger picture is, if she's doing things on purpose, or if she has done something in the past, I would probably already be gone.
Yeah, like I understand your feeling, but yeah.
I remember really the only thing that I've ever said was that if you had ever cheated on me, and you said I never would, and I believe that, but even early stages, so if you ever cheat on me, that would be the only non-negotiable for me. Everything else I think you can work out at some level, so you can discuss it, and we do. But I'm just at an age and a stage where I don't want to go through all of that, where someone cheats and then you have to not trust them, and then every time they do something, I'm not sure if they're going to do it again. And obviously women, there's a lot more opportunities to cheat because men don't care. Like, men are out there. I'm not a drinker. I don't go to bars, but people don't care. like they'll just try and hit on anything, whatever. If you've got to worry about all the men as a man, well, that's a problem. But I don't have to. I have to worry about you, the woman. And so if I trust her, so there's a big trust issue here for this person and their partner, which I think is a really big deal.
Yeah.
So you need to sort out, is it you, is it them, or I'm going to come all the way back to communication. You've got to be able to communicate yourself. We've only got a few minutes left, and I want to ask a few questions of Millie so that you guys get to know Millie better. And we'll do a little bit of this over the next few weeks as well. So we've got a series of cards here. I've collected these packs of cards that are conversation starters, which I use in corporate programs and so on, so that instead of in corporate programs, get up and tell us 3 things about yourself. I want to ask questions that make people think. And the hard thing about this is you don't give people a chance to read the question and come up with a response.
You always pick really deep questions too. So
I love deep questions.
I know you love deep questions. Sometimes it takes me a minute to think about them.
Well, I like this question. And this is I think a fairly standard question, but how do you think your younger self would perceive you today?
Honestly, trying not to sound full of myself, I think my younger self would think that I'm the coolest person ever. So I do love where I've come, mainly because my younger self was, not necessarily as confident as I am, or not willing to try things because I was worried about what other people thought. There's things when my younger self didn't like my curly hair, and I always used to straighten it, and I absolutely love my curls now. And so remembering my younger self, I just wanted to be free of all those thoughts, and now I am. So yeah, love it.
That's pretty cool. This question, what's one weakness that you want to work on?
My temper when I'm parenting. Yeah. If you guys know my kids, they're beautiful boys, but they're very challenging. They argue a lot, and then I don't know, there's some sort of trigger that just goes off in my head, and certain people are like, I reckon you probably have something going on, and like ADHD or something. And I'm not diagnosed, but something actually happens in my brain where if someone makes a loud noise, and the kids make lots of loud noises, which I love noise when it's happy, but when they're arguing and then someone makes this screaming sound immediately, I just can't do it.
I think you've improved out of sight.
I think so too. Yeah. I'm really, really trying. But that is definitely a weakness because I don't like yelling at my children. I always feel bad about it after, and it keeps me up at night. So,
in what ways are you different today from the person you were just 1 year ago? And I want to preface this question. Too many of us think that we have to make long-term change. We have 5-year and 10-year plans, but we underestimate what we can do in a year, how much our lives can change in a year. And our lives have certainly changed in a year and in 2 years. But in what ways do you think you are actually different now to who you were a year ago?
I'm definitely a better boxer.
That was the first thing I was going to say.
And like you said before, I'm getting way better at my parenting. I used to be very yelly, and I'm honestly going to be the first person to admit that because I'm not perfect. I'm definitely far from it, especially in the parenting aspect. So,
yeah. And we're always studying. We're always learning. Like we're reading books on.
We always try and be better. So
yeah, because we're pretty driven people. Some people, being a parent is their sole thing. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I understand that's how some people are. But I don't want to lose ourselves in the middle of, I don't want to get to 18, boys turn 18 and we go, what was the last 18 years about? It was just about being a parent. Oh, now I'll go out and do some things I want. We're chasing dreams now. Yeah. We're trying to affect other young people through programs that we're building. We're doing all of that stuff. And we want to be the best parents we can be to the boys. Yeah. So there's a lot going on. And there's an old saying that you can do anything in this world, anything, but you can't do everything. Yeah. So learn to cut some things out is really important. This is an interesting one. Do you think it's ever appropriate to seek revenge?
Oh, my God. You can't ask me that.
Can I start by saying no?
Yeah, it's not.
Just because what's the value in it?
100%. So
but I always want to.
I know. And that's the hard thing about it. It's like, oh my God, I just want to get you back.
We're just humans,
But
right?
it really does strip you of your happiness and of your focus, because once you start plotting revenge, That's all you can think about, really.
Yeah, and it's that there's a couple of sayings around that, but it's like when you're angered by someone, it's like holding on to a hot stone, and it doesn't affect them. Even
Yeah.
if they created it, if they've just moved on, they're just doing their thing. And there's another one it says it's like drinking poison and expecting it to kill the other person.
Yeah.
Because I always think about like a road rage incident where people get out of their cars and someone gets killed. I know that's extreme, but I saw one maybe a year or so ago on the Sunshine Coast motorway on the news where a young sort of tradie in his 30s got out and he's thumped a bloke in his 60s, he's fallen down and died. Well, now both of your lives are ruined. One guy's dead, you're going to jail.
Yeah.
All for that moment and that's probably what's helped me lead to being more calm.
Beyonce said, always stay gracious, best revenge is your paper. And that could mean money or success in any way. So you just stay gracious, stay on your road, your path, and yeah, they'll hate you for being successful. So
couple of mindset ones, because I think your mindset is solid and I think it can help other people. So how do you motivate yourself when you feel stuck?
Oh, I just go and do it. I don't know how else to say that. You know, I just, in my mind, I go, this is what you said you were going to do. You got to go and do it, and stop thinking about that.
Yeah, so the depth to that is, there's a Ralph Waldo Emerson quote that says, activity is contagious. So the biggest answer to me when I'm feeling stuck, and you've experienced me where, you know, some things have fallen through in the business, and then that creates a level of stress because I like to provide, and I'll get up at 2 or 3 in the morning because I need to be doing something. Otherwise, I'm going to lay there thinking about it, and I'm not going to sleep well. I'm probably going to have anxiety, because I don't really get anxiety, but that's when I've let myself and therefore yourself and the family down. I feel that. And you're always like, hey, we're equal in this. Yeah, I understand, but I know I'm a provider, so I know I like to be doing the thing. So activity is contagious. I mean, just get up and start doing something.
Yeah, and what I love when you do get up at 2 or 3 in the morning, and then when I wake up ready to start the day, you have got so much done, and you're so happy about it, and you're so proud of yourself, and I love it.
Am I an over-talker when I get happy about it? I'll get up and Millie will just wake up.
And I'm like, bro, I need a coffee before you start yapping.
So the first thing I'll normally do is get Millie a coffee. She likes a good coffee. And so I will, have done 3 or 4 videos. I've edited this. I've put 2 podcasts down, whatever I've done. And I like to do that because then the rest of the day we get to do our stuff, right? So I get stuff done when everyone's asleep. And so I'll come in and she'll be awake, and I know she's awake because she'll respond to a message, so I'll come up and I'll just go, brrr, and then I'll be halfway through that whole, and I can kind of see in her face like, wow, I'm trying to take all this in. And then I'll say, do you want a coffee? And she'll go, I thought you would never ask.
I thought we forgot about it.
It's there, but
like if he doesn't ask, I'll be like, anyway, so I'm just going to go get myself a coffee. And you're like, I'll do it. Taking my job.
What can you do today? And I guess this is for other people. What can you do today to feel more confident in your own skin? And I always like to preface questions about how I think about them. When people are fit and healthy, and I know these are choices, and attractive, it's easy to sit there and go, I feel really comfortable in my own skin. And if I'm me, when I was a 13 or 14-year-old, social media didn't exist, but I would look at this, say, a bloke who was 25 or 30 with a six-pack, and who's good looking, and think, well, okay, mate. And I see sometimes models will put up stuff online, you know, like some of the famous Australian sort of models with their no makeup, and go, I've done a no makeup day, because, yeah. Says you're already attractive.
Yeah.
If I'm 14 years old and I'm overweight and and I feel crap about myself, that's not helping me. So what could just everyday people, including us, because we have our days, what could we do to feel more confident in our own skin, do you think?
Go for a walk. To be honest, go for a walk in the
Move.
sunshine.
Yeah.
Move.
Get out into
Honestly,
nature.
yeah. Dress how you want to dress. Don't worry about what other people are going to think, and just get out to nature.
Because
and
we all
go
have
for a
it.
walk.
Like, people think that you're fit and healthy and whatever, but I know that you will dress in active wear, and definitely, and particularly, I have seen other women look at you up and down like, why? Why do you care what I'm wearing?
Yeah.
Like, it's not, it's not inappropriate in any way. I'm an athlete, but very rare do you get people actively supporting. But my answer to that question would be, ask yourself legitimately, what is it I don't like about myself? Because pretty much everything is changeable.
Yeah.
And very few things aren't fixed by movement. Like, we took the boys out on the weekend and we went and climbed Mount Gungun, or Noonan for those that know the actual name. it's a half-hour walk up. It's, we stayed up there for 10 or 15 minutes and then down. They were that excited, and then we were not even all the way down, and they're very active kids anyway, and they were like, can we do this again? Like, can we do another mountain? What's the next one we're going to do? And then you see all these people out there, and mostly they're all happy, and they're all saying good day. There's a couple of grumpy ones for the kids out there, but mostly people are pretty good. So being out in nature and being active is a powerful thing. And what we just said with the question before that is, activity is contagious, so just be doing something to fix the thing. Oh, I feel like I'm a bit overweight, or I feel like I have low energy, or all right, get more sleep, eat differently. I'm not saying be an athlete. You don't all have to be athletes, but you can.
But
change
also,
things.
you set goals, and then just small goals. So tomorrow I'm going to go for a walk, and then actually do that thing, because
Do what you said you were going to do.
Yeah, you're going to build confidence by doing that because you're proving to yourself that you can do the things that you said you were going to do, and you're going to be more confident about you as a person, because you're not going to be walking around thinking, oh, I just don't do anything, and I'm just this.
I'm really big on doing what you said you were going to do, because I think the worst thing that any of us could do is be full of shit. And the last thing you want to do is internally think you're full of shit. And by that I mean, at a subconscious level, people will say, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go for a run at 6 o'clock in the morning. And they don't do that. The next time you say that, your brain goes, no, you're not. Your brain's telling you that it thinks you're full of shit. That would be the worst. And I've done it. We've all been there. But trying to create that change in yourself. And the other thing is, if you're not creating a change, you don't want to. And that's not a negative. It's okay to say, you know what, my health and fitness isn't a priority right now, or learning that thing isn't a priority right now, or my relationship isn't a priority right now. You can say that, whatever that thing is, but you can't complain about what happens as a result of it not being a priority.
Yeah.
So, that's something to think about as well. This one I like. I'll give you two more because these are relevant to where we're at the moment. What is your hope for the next generation? Because we're doing a lot of work in this space.
Yeah.
I love this saying that people love this, it takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah.
And yet children that don't have a village, like that, we're working a lot in the space of young people who are displaced or youth reform, and the village wants to ignore them because they're not coming from the right place. I think all children deserve to have some level of care and attention. And it's that old Rita Pearson saying, who's a school teacher in America. She's passed away now, but she said that every child needs a champion. And a champion is someone that believes in them, even they don't believe in themselves. So my hope for the next generation, and I'm interested in yours as well, is that they just believe in themselves enough to know that they're not dictated to by the rest of the world. And I grew up in an era where you weren't really dictated to, but through the era of social media, they are. Because they're comparing themselves. When I was a kid, you compared yourself to the kids in your street, the kids at your school, and the kids in your footy team. Kids today are comparing themselves to the world.
Yeah.
The TikToks and all that. And I'm not saying social media is the devil, but man, it's hard on them. So what's your hope for the next generation?
That they all have at least one person who loves them. You need somebody to love you. Yeah. And some of these kids get born into situations that they definitely didn't ask. No, none of us asked to be born, number one. It was by selfish choices of our parents. And then they get born into worlds where they have nobody, so just one person. I hope that they all have one person.
We've got a good mate, Will Smith, who runs JCP Youth in Tassie. We went down to their gala that they did last year in July, and he's, I think, the best program in Australia for young people off the streets at the moment, and it should be everywhere. And we're working on bringing something with Will's help to Queensland. But there was a young kid that got up there and spoke, and he said the key thing for him, because he'd just done 3 years with Will, was that Will said he doesn't believe in giving these kids second chances because he knows most of us never had a first chance.
Yeah.
And when you're looking at youth crime, which is a big thing in Queensland at the moment, we probably could do a whole podcast on. We're making all this youth crime, adult time, and all that sort of stuff. Which, if we're talking violent, rapes, murders, absolutely. But I think we're trying to lump all kids in and just get these trouble kids off the street rather than saying what's actually going on for them.
Yeah.
Because through all the readings we've been doing lately, even for our own children, if they're misbehaving, there's a deeper reason to it. It's not the thing that first triggered them. It's something deeper.
Yeah.
And so, I just wish we would have a better understanding to understand that most of these kids never had a first chance. They were born into really poor situations. So my last one to finish off this episode is, and this is for you personally, how would you like people to remember you? Whether it's in 10 years' time, in 50 years' time, whether it's your grandkids, how would you like people to look back and think about Millie Saul?
Um, as a as a loving mum who always had a go and wanted to show other people that they also can have a go. Yeah, so that would be it. But again, they can think about me how they want.
I know.
So
Well, I know you say that. I know you feel that you don't
no,
care
but
too
I
much.
just no. The reason that I'm saying that is because I don't think that I'm important enough to be, you know.
Can I challenge that?
Okay.
So, in the world of three people, Christian, Samuel, and Marley, so that's our boys. You are absolutely that
So
important.
that's why
So,
my answer was that a
yeah.
loving mum who was willing to give anything a go,
Because there are
because that's
times.
solely and you who I care about
Mm.
and whose opinions and stuff I care about. But as far as the world goes, there are I'm such a small minute part of the world that I don't give thought into how I'm going to be thought about when I'm gone, because the world will move on and there'll be more
And it's
things
the
to
same as
worry about.
people have opinions about us. And the reason we don't get offended by that is because who are you to us and why does
Yeah.
it matter? And in 50 years' time, will any of us care?
Mm.
But the legacy, if any of us leave a legacy, is around those boys.
Yeah.
And I know there are times where you don't feel like a good mother.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's probably all parents at some level.
Yeah.
But I know that you do the best that you can all the time. And when we know better, we do better. That's what we do. And I know when I look at your boys in particular who've lived a lot of things with you, I know that they know that you give 100%. They might
Thank
not
you.
show it at 10 and 11 because they're 10 and 11, right?
Yeah.
But I know that that 18-year-old version is going to look back and go, man, she did so much, because I find it very rare that I run into someone with the work ethic that I have.
Yeah.
And you have that work ethic.
Yeah.
If it means going to work and cleaning at midnight to make some dollars, and I'll go to work and clean.
Mm.
You'll do what needs to be done, even if we don't want to do it. And I've seen you go and do that and finish work at 8 o'clock in the morning and then turn up for sparring at 9.
Yeah.
Like, that's what we do, right? As opposed to saying, well, I won't work. Oh, okay, well, now there's less money, and that's a problem. And people go, oh, there's just no work out there. Or there is, but there's only midnight, and I don't really want to do midnight. And that's not who we are, typically. But also in the same token, we're trying to create our own financial freedom by giving the world more of what it needs.
Yeah.
Which in our space is youth development stuff. So I think we could delve so deeply into the parenting side of things for us both, because we've made all the mistakes, I think. Like my older girls, I was in the army for. I really look back now and think of the time we spend with Samuel and Marley, I didn't give them, because I was 100% married to the military. That was my first priority, and that's just what it is. And I'm still a little bit that way, in the sense of when we're trying to achieve a goal, and I'm so driven towards that thing that I've got to pull back and realise that, and you're good at telling me this, so I need to spend more time with you. You're not doing the things with me and with the boys. And you pull me up on that in a weekly basis. Some people in relationships will wait 6 months, 12 months, 2 years. It's too late.
Yeah.
You've had so many problems happen by that point in time that you haven't solved that aren't going to go away. Whereas and so we're always harping back to communication. If you're communicating with the people most important to you, and men are really bad for this, we think we work really hard because we want to supply houses and holidays and cars, and what your women and children, in my experience, typically want from you is time. And so we can go and have really good holidays with the boys, and they're going to remember doing manus in the pool more than anything else.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what that is, you need to go and look it up. If you've got 10, 11-year-olds, you'll know exactly what that is.
If you don't know what that is, you're not cool enough, apparently.
Even I'm doing money these days. So anyway, that's another episode of Mayhem Mondays.
Thank you for
very
listening.
eclectic sort of view on things.
Yeah.
We're going to keep putting questions out there for you guys. Hit us with whatever you want, because we're going to give you
Whatever
honest.
you want.
Yeah, we're not scared of the questions, but we'll also, I think, do some topics around things that are relevant to us. So we will bring some topics to the table that we want to talk about. They may not always be as long, which is okay. Whether it be relevant things happening in our worlds, whether it be things that we want to challenge each other on publicly, because we do it privately, and they could get more heated in a good way. So, and we've had conversations where we've both shifted perspective a little bit, and we've had conversations where we've absolutely refused to shift perspective.
Yeah.
And that's where we just decide we can still love each other, and not agree with everything that each other believes. And Millie's fine with being wrong. And no,
When it happens.
one day it'll happen.
One day, maybe.
All right, team, thank you for listening to another episode of Mayhem Monday. And honestly, we invite you to send through your questions around anything you want. If you want to keep challenging us on us, that's fine. But we'd love to help you with personal development.
Yeah, whatever.
That's what we do.
Send them through. Enjoy your week. Thank you for listening.